Welcome to Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. In the next half hour, you'll obtain insights and tools to transform your life using the biblical principles found in the 12-step program. We believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience because we all have struggles in life. Struggles with addictions, food, depression, anxiety, and relationships, to name a few. You'll be encouraged to see how others have found a new way of life with hope for the future through life recovery. Your host is Steve Arterburn, founder of New Life Ministries and Women of Faith, author of over 100 books, and teaching pastor at Northview Church in Carmel, Indiana, one of the 20 largest churches in America. Steve is the co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, the #1 selling recovery Bible. With over 3 million copies sold, this is the Bible given to inmates by Prison Fellowship and the Pew Bible for the Salvation Army. Now here's Steve.
Hi, Steve Arterburn here. Thanks for joining me with Life Recovery Today. And Sam Fraser is going to be my interview guest, and I think you're going to love Sam. He's been helping a lot of people for a lot of years. But before we get started, it's the 24th of December as I do this, and it's my daughter's birthday. And one of the things that I think is so fantastic about my daughter is her willingness to say no. This was a young woman who went to Laguna Beach High School, graduated never having touched marijuana, alcohol, one of the few virgins that ever graduated from that high school, if I do say so myself. So proud of her because she was willing to say no. You know, in the 12 laws of life recovery, there is a law of willingness. And it says that whenever we adhere to this willingness law, we're going to experience growth. What better day to be talking about willingness than on Christmas Eve when Mary had to be willing to get on a donkey and ride around and then end up stuck in a barn. I was talking to some people the other day and I said, can you imagine when she realized that her son was going to be born in a barn, and the fear that when people said to him, what, were you born in a barn or something? He would have to say, yes, I was. Anyway, bad humor. But let me just say this. Mary was willing. And Mary and her willingness helped bring into the world the Savior of the world. All my life, well, not all my life, but starting in 1977, I started working with alcoholics and drug addicts. And when they didn't have Christ, they would go to a certain level in recovery, but it seemed like they would plateau because recovery wasn't quite complete. If you know anything about the founders, Bill W. and Dr. Bob, when someone came to him and said, I want recovery, they had to be willing to go to the upper room with him. He would put them on their knees and he would win them over to Jesus Christ. That was the original surrender in the original days or the beginning days of Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, all we've done is we've kind of, with Life Recovery, gone back to those very, very Christian roots. They said they got these 12 steps right out of the good book. They didn't invent them. They said they discovered them. They were there all along. Well, thanks for joining me today. We'll take a break and come back and we'll talk with Sam Fraser, who's been helping a lot of people, especially guys now, in the area of sexual addiction. And we'll do that right after this. So stay tuned for more Life Recovery Today.
Are you going through your struggles alone? Do you want someone to talk to help you through your pain? Do you feel like a failure when you relapse again, telling yourself, next time will be different? Don't walk this path alone anymore. Join a life recovery group today and be a person that your friends and family can be proud of. God created us to be in community, and we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country, and if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. Life Recovery brings recovery to you, right where you are. You'll take a journey with others to find healing and freedom. Whether you're looking to join a group or start one, New Life Ministries is here for you. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit liferecoverytoday.net.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. Steve Arterburn here. And you know, if you want to start the year working those steps, well, just call 1-800-NEW-LIFE. You can order a Life Recovery Bible there. There are 5 different workbooks that go with it, and you can get started. There are other resources like the devotional and 12 Laws of Life Recovery and the 12 Gifts of Life Recovery. Well, it is my privilege to introduce to you Sam Fraser. I met Sam through our Every Man's Battle workshop as he was working with the guys there. Now Sam, he's been a pastor. He has helped churches set up recovery groups, been a psychotherapist for 30 years, and he's the associate professor, the only place that is certified to get a sexual addiction certification in the world of counseling, and that's of course the Mid-America Nazarene College. Is it college or university, Sam?
University.
Okay, university. Well, Sam, welcome, and thanks for joining me here on Life Recovery Today.
I'm welcome to be here. I'm just excited about what we're going to talk about.
So, I suspect that you're working with people today, not because you read in a textbook somewhere that would be really interesting. Talk about your journey to get to where you are today.
Yeah, I didn't get my education for being an addict from books. I did it in personal life. So I got my PhD in addiction firsthand. What I felt about my life was kind of empty when I was growing up. The first time I ever felt alive was when I drank alcohol. And I felt this warm sensation. I felt this change in my life. I felt at peace. For the first time, I felt comfortable in my own skin. And so from then on, it was drugs, sex, and rock and roll. So addiction has always been a part of that. But when I went to church, I realized there was something there. But it was the church I went to was very strict, and it's like you could not have fun. So if you tasted something and it tasted good, you had to spit it out. And so I was kind of like, I'm not ready for this yet.
Yeah.
And so I went all the way around looking for things, but God had touched my life, and so I went the long way around and came back finally.
So, at the worst point of your life, before things started to change, what was life like? What were you doing? How bad did it get?
Well, there was many places I hit bottom, and I just never was really ready to accept surrendering and getting help. The final straw was I had become a pastor, and I had finished all my addictions. I wasn't drinking anymore. I wasn't using drugs, but I could still do my secret addiction. I could do my sex addiction. So I was a pastor living as a single man, trying to live as a pastor by day and a double life as a sex addict at night. Then I got married, and I thought that is going to cure my sex addiction. It's going to go away. And of course, it does not cure sex addiction.
Well, let's just stop right there for a second. Why doesn't getting married make sex addiction better? Guys think, first of all, they think, it's this, we talk about in Every Man's Battle, the book, the bifurcation myth, that I can have all this lust and sex outside of marriage and then eat some wedding cake and I'm a new person. Or
That's right.
They think, well, I just am not having enough sexual intimacy. Once I get married, then that's going to take care of that. Why is it that getting married makes it worse, not better?
Yeah, hallelujah, Jesus, everything's going to be remedied. Well, the reality was that lasted for about 3 months, and then the pink bubble popped, and I realized the reason I was doing my sexual acting out wasn't because of sex. It was about my underlying emotional issues that I hadn't dealt with when I was a boy, that I had learned to use that as a solution to my loneliness, my feeling of isolation, my feeling of not feeling connected, and I use it as an emotional way. I had a relationship. It was sort of my savior at that time. And again, when you use that as a solution, at some point, it's no longer the solution. It becomes the problem. Because God has not designed us for those kind of things. He's designed us for relationship with Himself, with others, and even within ourselves.
So Sam, what was it about father and mother that left you feeling so isolated or alone in your childhood, to where there wasn't that warm, loving feeling? And once you had a little bit of alcohol, boy, you felt it like crazy. What was going on with them?
Well, yeah, it's that's a great question. It wasn't that my mom and dad didn't love me, but there were some things missing in their emotional vocabulary that was not translated to me. I was the most sensitive person in my family, and so therefore I was actually depressed as a kid. I didn't even realize it. And I always said there was something wrong with me because my mom and my dad and my brother seemed to be fine. So if they're fine, it must be me. And so I would do things to entertain myself. I was more of an introvert. I was pretty shy. 13 miles from town, I was a country boy. So I had to find ways to entertain myself. And so, like I said, the first time I felt alive was when alcohol entered my blood system, and I felt comfortable in my own skin. And then I kept searching from there because I knew there was something missing. And that was the best I could do under the circumstances. So we didn't do emotions in my family. We didn't do connection. It was all about performance. It was all about tasks. It was all about doing things that getting approval, which is not exactly the recipe for feeling good about yourself. If you do something, it's more about doing than being. So if I performed well, I got approval. If I didn't, I was rejected, or I felt rejected. Let's put it that way.
Sam, in my own life, when I was in the most promiscuous stage of my life, and when you look at that, you would just have to say it was an addiction. I mean, there's just no other way to look at it. I didn't have to go all the way with somebody, but I felt connected to them when I was sexual with them. Did you have that same experience?
Yes, exactly right. And so I would go from relationship to relationship because even though I would feel that connection, and I felt that because I sexualized my intimacy needs, and so I thought sex and intimacy was the same thing at that time. But every time I would go into a relationship and stay in a relationship, it would never satisfy me. It would leave me emptier and emptier. And so I thought maybe I need to do more sex and more drugs and more alcohol. And of course, that made me more self-deprivation. And I ended up hating myself for who I had become.
So when you think back on the early days, and what was most helpful, if you can remember, in getting things headed the right direction after hitting bottom, as you said, several different times?
Yeah, I was skipping along the bottom. Well, actually what happened was I got married, thought it would solve everything, it didn't. I got caught by my wife and my having some affairs. And so what happened was I never was able to ask for help. And I wanted help so badly, but I could not say that four-letter word. It's sort of a man law. We can't use the word H-E-L-P. Can't say help. And so finally I got caught, so I got help. It's not the best way to do it, but that's the way a lot of us do it who get into recovery. And so it was being with, I started with 12 steps because there was nothing else out there. The church really hadn't any way to deal with it yet. I was kind of in the pioneer part of learning how to deal with sex addiction. And it wasn't until I got into a group of Christian men where I started feeling forgiven. I knew God forgave me, but I could not forgive myself for what I had done. It wasn't until I was with a bunch of men who were mature and took me in my shame, took me in my humiliation, and said, we love you. And for the first time in my life, I felt loved by other men.
I love that, and I think there are so many men who just have never ever had the companionship, the healthy connection with other men. We say it all the time, men become men in the company of men.
Of other men.
And
Yes.
you really are a very powerful force in our Every Man's Battle workshop, and I want to talk about that when we come back from this particular break. But I want to say to anybody that's listening, if you are interested in getting this whole sexual addiction or sexual dependency thing taken care of, you call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE, because one day, and now they're online during this COVID epidemic, but one day on this thing, and you will totally change your trajectory. Sam, Bob Scalar, these guys, they are committed to helping people turn their life around and get out of the sex and into real intimacy. You don't have to give up the sex. You can still do that. We'll be back right after this with more Sam Fraser.
It's hard to find a trusted friend when you're in crisis, someone who's been there and understands, but who also has the training and skill to give you practical help. Family, friends, and churches want to help, but often they're not equipped to care for those dealing with problems like addiction and pornography, infidelity, anger, depression. New Life Ministries is here to provide help and hope in life's hardest places. We're not focused on making people feel better. We're focused on helping people do the work that will help them be better. At New Life, we have resources available to help you, like books, DVDs, CDs, workshops, and our network of licensed counselors. If you need help, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and begin your new life today.
Welcome back to Life Recovery. Today, we're interviewing Sam Fraser, and we've talked about a lot of different things: alcohol addiction, sex addiction, a lot of things that you may be experiencing. And if you need any help, you call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE, and we'll give you the kind of help that you can really benefit from, no matter what the problem is. We've probably got a workshop or we've got a counselor somewhere. Now, Sam, when people come to Every Man's Battle, a lot of folks say, well, you know, before you come and do anything, you really have to want to be better. But a lot of people come, they don't want to be better. They just want to kind of satisfy the wife because they got caught or something like that. Are a lot of people not getting help because somebody thinks, well, until he wants help, he's not going to benefit from anything?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because many men are there because their wife says, you have to be there. And so they sort of come in with an attitude, and it sort of have their arms crossed, and they're waiting for something to happen. But by the time Jason starts to talk, and then as they get into the groups, you start to see the guys warm up, because what they're talking about is real. What they're talking about is true. What they're talking about touches their hearts, and they begin to kind of like move from resistance to start to move forward. And by the end of the day, almost everybody that we touch, because of the kind of work we're doing and the kind of authenticity that we represent and the kind of experience that we have that they relate to, they find out their experience is not by themselves, because one of the things we often see is they feel like we're the only ones, and then they come in and go like, oh, I'm not the only one. Oh, yeah. And that guy's story is like my story. And then all of a sudden, well, gradually for some of the guys, depending on how much pride and shame they're in and resistance because their wife wants them there, they begin to soften. And by the end of the day, they start really seeing that this is something that they needed, even though they didn't know that they needed it.
Yeah. You know, I've talked to wives, and they will say to me, well, I was told by this person or that, you know, it's not really going to do any good unless he wants to get better, and unless he realizes he has a problem that has to be dealt with. And so I'll say to them, okay, now let's think this through. Is he more likely to understand he has a problem and want to get help from it by playing golf this Saturday, or hanging out at a bar this Saturday, or going out of town on a trip, or being with about 100 other people, many of whom already know they have a problem, many have the same problem as him, hearing things about how you get better? Which one of those scenarios is more likely to produce the kind of result you're looking for, where he knows he has a problem and then he wants to get help from it? And of course, you know, going to this thing, Every Man's Battle, it's more likely to help folks. What do you say to a spouse who just doesn't know what to do about this guy that's really in trouble, and she loves him, but doesn't know if that love is going to be there forever or he's going to be there forever? What do you say to that person?
Yeah, I think what you're addressing is there hope? Because a wife can do all kinds of things to get somebody to do something, but a person, you know, so you can lead a horse to water, can't make them drink, but you can salt their nose and make them thirsty. And when a man gets thirsty, a man will drink. And so the idea of sometimes coming across like mom, because no husband wants to have mom tell him what to do.
That's right.
Because, you know, most of the time they're right. And so our humility and our pride gets in the way. But when they're invited, nobody wants to be told what to do. But if you invite and say, would you do it for me? Would you think about how it impacts us? I know it's something maybe you don't think you need, but will you do this, and just do this for just one day? You can play golf, or you can go to the bar next week.
Yeah.
Do this for me today.
Yeah, I think that is a very valid plea when someone says, Okay, look at what we've been through. Look at the kind of stuff that I've had to deal with you, the things I've had to forgive, the pain that I've experienced. If you're not willing to just do this one thing, then I question whether or not there's any commitment to me or to this marriage. Don't you think the least you could do is to go? And many times a guy that has resisted, when he hears that, don't you think the least you could do phrase, then he does end up going. Now, one of the things that I know you do is you've helped churches set up recovery programs. What is that all about?
Well, a lot of churches want to meet the needs of the congregation, but this one is really a tough one. We've, in New Life, we've been doing this for over 20 years with the book and then with the workshops, and churches have been really resistant in the past, and now they're starting to warm up to the idea that this is really a needed ministry. But the idea of most churches and most pastors are not equipped. They don't have the training, they don't have the expertise, and they got so many needs as shepherds to deal with their congregation. And so the idea of setting up a recovery ministry for people that are needing of it, because they realize that everybody has some kind of thing they need to recover from. So the idea of understanding that, making it a broader, so it's not something of shame, it's not something of punishment, it's not something to be judged by, but it's a thing that is a place for help. A lot of people, certainly a lot of men, when the pastor says something about sexual integrity or struggling with sexual issues, it opens the door for the men in the congregation to say, okay, I can talk about this. And when it's not preached from the pulpit, a lot of times it just shuts it down. So the idea of recovery ministries is a kind of a new ministry. It's a place for evangelism. It's a place to invite new people in. It's a real resource that churches have been reluctant to invite into, because it's sort of like, it's not the pretty face on the poster. It's where people are. It's like it's a Red Cross. It's like, come bring us your wounded. Yeah. And it's amazing what churches do when they accept that, because everybody has issues. Everybody has some sort of need and some kind of brokenness.
Absolutely, that is true. So, Sam, as we close out the program, is there any great piece of wisdom that you've acquired that you could pass on to others as you've been on this recovery journey and on helping people in their own recovery? Any great words of wisdom you could leave with us?
I don't know about words of wisdom, but I knew from my personal experience, I felt like the guy who had the 10 talents, the 5 talents, the 1 talent, and the one guy who buried it because he wasted his life. I felt I wasted my Christianity because of my addiction. And I didn't realize that in that recovery, that everything I thought I lost, everything I wasted, actually he redeems. It's the worst thing that ever happened to me with my addiction. It's also the best thing that happened to me, because I found God in a way that I never would have found him if I kept my secrets and I kept pretending to be something I wasn't. I found that God, and I found a body of men who also needed the same thing I needed, and it brought men back together. It's addiction that Satan wants to destroy us with. It's God that shows his love and his experience of us, that we would never understand or never experience him in that way unless we had that, because we never felt needy enough or needed his grace and to understand who he was and experience his love in a way that we never thought was possible.
Well, Sam, I'm so thankful that we got to hear your story, and I'm so grateful that you work with us at Every Man's Battle. You really are one of the strong pillars of that whole program. So thank you for that, and you keep up the great work. I'm so glad that God is a God of mercy. He has redeemed you, and you have turned this around, and now you're helping other people. So thank you for being with me, and I'll take a break. I'll come back and wrap this up. But I think as we approach this new year, this would be a great year to enter into life recovery.
Life recovery isn't just about making the courageous choice to give up an addiction or dependency. It's a journey towards health, wholeness, and becoming your very best you. If you need resources to help you in your journey, we can help. There are many life recovery resources that you can do on your own, with a group, or with your church. We have Bibles, workbooks, and devotionals that you can use to work your recovery right where you are. That's the beauty of Life Recovery. To learn more or to get the Life Recovery Bible or any other Life Recovery resource, visit liferecoverytoday.net or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. You know, we've got 12 laws. I talked about the law of willingness, but there are also 12 gifts of life recovery. And one of those gifts is the gift of happiness. A lot of people think that happiness is some strange thing that isn't in the Bible, but there is mention of happiness separate from joy, which, you know, joy is kind of like, to me, getting the best of things even though it's horrible. But happiness is totally different. Proverbs 10:28 says, "The hopes of the godly result in happiness, but the expectations of the wicked come to nothing." So when our hope is in the Lord, we're going to have happiness. And then Psalm 119:35 says, "Make me walk along the path of your commands, for that is where my happiness is found." And I know this, that when we are free, we can experience happiness. And when we're honest, when we're working an honesty program, when we are committed, radically committed to the truth about ourselves and the truth about other people, we are walking in God's path. We will find freedom. We won't ever have to be worried about what did I say to this person or what do I need to cover up from that person. And that is a wonderful, free, and happy way to live. It is essentially life to the fullest. To me, that's what life recovery is all about. And I hope and pray that if you haven't entered into it, no matter what you're going through, that 2021 will be your year of life recovery. And if you need some help with that, if you need a Life Recovery Bible or any of the other materials, you call us 1-800-NEW-LIFE. I'll see you next year right here.
Thanks for joining us for Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. We hope this program has helped you integrate God's truth and wisdom into your recovery journey. This program is brought to you by New Life Ministries, and it's your support that keeps this program on the air. When you contact us for any reason, be sure to let us know that you watch on NRB. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to liferecoverytoday.net. Please join us again next week for more Life Recovery Today.